Okay, what I would like to do in this video is to discuss Chapter 0, the introductory chapter. We've already seen a couple of slides in it, but first thing you need to do, as always, is log into your Cisco networking account. Now, you'll notice that I clicked login and you did not see me enter a user ID and password. That's because I was just in the NetAcad a few moments ago. And for some length of time, I don't know exactly what it is, you can get back in and we'll still be authenticated in the Networking Academy. So here we're on the course page for our 161 class. If I click Launch Course, it's going to take me in. And as we talked about in the NetAcad one, we navigate to whatever page we would like. So basically what this is doing is welcoming you to the class and telling you that you're going to learn about networks, network applications, and that type of thing. And we will have something called Packet Tracer, which will be very important to this class. There is a number of Packet Tracer assignments. Basically, Packet Tracer is a way to simulate networks. That's one of the great advantages of being an official Cisco class and having a Network Academy account is that you get access to Packet Tracer. And we'll start into Packet Tracer pretty quickly. The other thing we have that I'll discuss at a later date, probably have a video on it, is there's something called the Net Lab. And we will do a lot of assignments that we would normally do in the classroom if this was a 100% in-person class. We will do those on the Net Lab, but more about that to follow. The internet is a global network. Therefore, there is a global community. What they're talking about here is the Net Academy actually being a global community. There are instructors and students in over 160 countries that make use of this software. And they have ways that you can interact with communities, discussion groups related to this course or other courses you take. We've never participated in them, but sometimes they have little challenges or that type of thing where groups of students from schools all around the world communicate and interact with the NetAcad website. There's a lot of things to learn. The information that we're ultimately sending over the network is just a bunch of ones and zeros. But we need to know how the network interprets those. How do we get that data on the network? How do they pass through networking equipment such as routers and switches and that type of thing? There are lots of ways that we communicate. We have voice over IP phones that are very popular these days. A lot of people actually have them in their homes. A lot of businesses make use of them. There's teleconferencing, which we're just showing. And you will learn in this course how networking applies to all these things. So the Cisco philosophy is learning by what they call e-doing. What we do is we engage the students with activities, we interact with the students. There are interactive activities within these slides. We stimulate your knowledge, and it can be personalized to your learning style. One thing that I think I mentioned in the syllabus, but if you actually have a physical copy of the textbook, it's going to have almost verbatim, not 100%, but very close to verbatim, all the text and all the pictures that appear in the Networking Academy. So, if you prefer a physical copy, that's great, buy a copy. Fortunately, it's not quite as expensive as your traditional textbook, But if you're okay at looking at the slides like we're doing right now, going through on your own, looking at the material, then there's no need to spend the money for a physical book. They believe that practice leads to mastery of the information. So there are different things you can do. As far as show, we are going to have text and media throughout the book. That's what we'll spend a lot of time looking at, discussing the graphic that is shown. If you're going back and reading this, then that discussion would take place in this example in the text. Here to the left, sometimes it's to the left, sometimes it's to the right. You can try. There's actually an interactive practice activities that you can do that it'll tell you want to name switch 1, for example. So you go in and you issue all the commands that you would need to on the switch to set its name to whatever is specified. I think I said switch 1. There will be a number of packet tracer examples. Basically what you'll do is you will have a set of instructions and you will download what's called a packet tracer file, which is a definition of the network that you're going to be working on. The first couple of packet tracers kind of guide you through packet tracer itself more than anything else, but then later on they'll be concentrating on a particular topic. Your first lab that you have, the first packet tracer that you have, that type of thing, I will spend more time talking about how you do that, how it works, and what I expect you to turn in. And then the synthesize is problem solving. In a hands-on class, you would actually be using real equipment. Students seem to enjoy that, but in a 100% online class, we're probably not going to have that unless we have a lab day or something. But you can actually go in Packet Tracer and just build your own network. Packet Tracer is not just something that's only going to look for the correct answer for a particular problem. It truly simulates the equipment. So if you were at a company that had some switches and routers, you could actually download the code that's running, the configuration file that's running, and load it onto simulated switches and routers, connect them up as they're connected in your business, and you can make changes to that and make sure they work. If you break something in a simulation, no big deal. You figure out what you did wrong. You go back and fix it. But once you have it working the way you would like, you can actually take the config files that are being simulated in Packet Tracer, upload those to your real equipment, and they will work exactly the same. Like I said, Packet Tracer, there used to be a software package, I can't remember what it's called at the time. It cost $800 or $900, and Cisco purchased that and improved upon it. So Packet Tracer itself is worth $1,000, $2,000 if you were to go out and try to buy it as a software package. Cisco has had a number of slogans over the years. Currently they're using Mind Wide Open, and basically they're saying that the Networking Academy can expand what you know and what you can do, and it provides you with the instructional materials that facilitate this process. The last sentence down here, being CCNA certified shows an employer that you've taken the class, you understand the material, and you can do some real-world things, and you have the certification to prove that. One thing they talk about, unfortunately in IT, if there's one thing that suffers, it is documentation. You really should keep good documentation. When you write programs, you should put comments in there that are meaningful. You should possibly have external documentations, that type of thing. Networking is no different. You should keep track of what you do. And if you're out on a real world job, this kind of is a record of what you did. And if something goes wrong, you can go back and look and see how you fixed it. If you have the same problem a year or two from now, you may be able to go back and have benefit of the troubleshooting and research you did the first go around. So keeping engineering journals are a good thing. Here they're showing you some example things, topology at the top, how the network's laid out, some of the Cisco commands that they issued and why they were issuing them. I went out and bought one of these journals, and I keep it for my Raspberry Pi. If you're not familiar with the Raspberry Pi, it's a small little computer that costs $35. And you can do a lot of things. So I have tried to, every time I do something new, research a new command, write a program to do something on my Raspberry Pi. I try to write it in my journal. So it's real easy just to do stuff and then forget what you did and not be able to go back and document it. But engineering journals can be an important thing in networking. So here they're calling this the Explore the World of Networking. It's actually showing you Packet Tracer. We have a couple of servers. We have a network cloud, the internet. We have a modem. We have a router that has wireless access points. Those are little antennas. And off of this, we have 3 PCs connected to it. The type of line that's drawn tells you what type of media is connecting it. The green connections or the green dots show you that the connection is configured and working correctly. If you needed to add something, for example, another router, you would come down here, you would drag it out, and then you would connect it with the cables, or in this case, this represents a wireless connection. You could go back and add the new machine in. Like I said, pretty quickly you'll have a couple of introductory assignments that teaches you the beginning of Packet Tracer. Another handy thing, I think you'll see this assignment pretty quickly, is each one of these boxes can be its own Packet Tracer definition. You can then go through and start Packet Tracers, and you can connect them together. So one of the first ones we do is we have 2 different Packet Tracers that are exchanging information. That is a very powerful, very handy tool. So the other thing they have is they have educational games. I told you about that. And then there are performance-based assessments that basically use Packet Tracer for you to do it. I think when you get to Chapter 3, your chapter quiz might have 1 of 2 of these performance-based assessments. There is a one after Chapter 6 in your textbook. There's one after Chapter 11. And when you go take the exams, some of the questions on the exams will be backed by Packet Tracer. So they'll tell you to do something, fire up Packet Tracer, you have to do the right thing, and then by looking at the configuration files typically, they can figure out if you did the right thing or not and what score you should receive on that assessment. So as far as the course overview, looking at the dotted list on the right, a lot of times we'll draw analogies between how does human communications happen and then how does it happen in a network and what are the parallels or similarities between them. We'll also talk about layered network models. There are 2 of them that are very important, the OSI model and the TCP/IP model. We'll discuss both of those and how they're similar to each other as we go throughout the course. We'll talk about what a layered network approach is and why is it good to use a layered network. We'll talk about the layers. TCP/IP has 4 layers. The OSI model has 7. We'll learn what those layers are and what the function of that layer is and what services in network communication does that layer provide. We'll talk about networking equipment, routers, switches, repeaters, bridges, that type of thing. And we'll talk about network addressing schemes, which would be IP addresses, both IP version 4 and version 6. If you haven't heard those terms before, we will discuss them. We'll talk about how devices need to be addressed so that they can communicate with each other. And then we'll talk about the different types of media, such as fiber optic cable and copper wiring that we use to interconnect networking equipment. We'll also learn about wireless connections as we go through. So down here at the bottom is kind of a summary. By the end of this course, you will be able to build simple local area networks, perform basic configurations for routers and switches, and implement IP addressing schemes. So all those are important, and those are the things that you will learn how to do in CIT 161, Network Fundamentals, or the official Cisco title, Introduction to Networks. Now, when I click that right button, you will notice that I was at the end of Chapter 0, so it automatically advanced me to the first page in Chapter 1, which up here we can see is 1.0.1.1. So that covers Chapter 0. We'll end there, and pretty quickly I'll start in and give you some lectures on Chapter 1.